All right, we are live, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Lake County. I'm your host, David Rich. This is a new acquaintance of mine, William Henry. William, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, David. I really appreciate the
No
opportunity.
problem. Do you prefer William or Will or Bill?
You
Is
can
William
call me
fine? Wilmo?
Will.
Okay. Okay, cool. Will is good. Yeah, so I posted on Facebook last week, anybody want to come on the show and talk about the legalization of marijuana? I kind of put it that way. And mutual acquaintance of ours, Elizabeth, I can't never pronounce her last name. Would you do it for me?
Coquillard.
Pointed me towards William. I messaged him and he immediately reached out, said he would love to come on. And I was looking over, he sent me a link about kind of his biography. And the man has a very, very impressive resume. And why don't you quick tell us about that? Like from your military service to all the other things you've done, like getting into politics and so on.
I joined the military in 2005 during, the peak of deployments, and Iraq and Afghanistan wars were going heavily during that time. And when I enlisted, I joined as a photojournalist. So I was put into training to take photos and talk to troops out in the field and be able to relay what they were doing back home and let the folks know, where their money was being spent and how it was being used. And, those troops on the ground got exposure for what they were doing as well to their hometowns and things like that. So really got to be able to tell the story and see the, everything happening on the ground and be able to explain that at our level, which was a brigade size level, which we covered about a quarter of the size of Afghanistan when I was deployed there. I came home from Afghanistan and geared back up for another deployment almost immediately after that, and went on a second deployment to Kuwait and other areas of the Middle East, covering other stuff that was happening from 2012 to 2013. A lot of the drawdown from the Iraq War was happening, a lot of transition happening from there as well. So got home, got out of the military in 2015. I was already working for veterans at that time at the state level for the American Legion, which is an organization centered around veterans and their families, and got to advocating there at the state level, reorganized an organization of organizations. So DAV, AMVETS, American Legion, and just Veterans of Foreign Wars, and other organizations too. We kind of bound together and worked together and advocated for a number of changes in the state. And we were very successful for a few years from 2016, 17, 18. We really got some veterans issues moved in the state. We were able to work with legislators and the executives and really communicate exactly what we needed to do for veterans in the state. And we got a lot accomplished. After that, I started advocating heavily, focusing on cannabis as well. After leaving the veterans realm full time, I'm still working with veterans. I still do veteran stuff quite often. But full-time work had kind of shifted, and I started to advocate for cannabis and working through. I chaired the Indiana NORML organization, which is the National Organization to Reform Marijuana Laws, the Indiana chapter, and worked in a number of realms focusing on cannabis reform, and was there during the legalization of hemp, which kind of divided the movement altogether of cannabis by legalization of hemp allowed federally in 2018. So from that point on, I really was trying to look at the science portions of it, looking into the studies that had been done, and trying to basically report to the people that this information was out here, and we needed to do these studies in detail, because then they couldn't say that we don't have the studies any longer. And one of those studies, specifically in the hemp realm, was the food and nutritional content of hemp. And the USDA, who oversees hemp, does not have the nutritional content of the flowers or the leaves or the complete seeds of hemp altogether. And it was really a glaring opportunity to me to be able to to work on that sector and really find the science of that information and deliver it to the public. And that's what I've been trying to work on since.
Yeah, that's great. That's amazing. Excuse me. In Indiana, it's medicinally legal or no?
No, we have hemp product access, and that's it. We don't have
Not even medicinal.
medical. No, we're surrounded by states who do have medical programs for high THC cannabis or marijuana, as it's been coined the term by the government. But we're completely surrounded. We're an island right now, and a lot of folks are still facing possession charges and things like that in their local communities as well.
Yeah, that's pretty astonishing. And like, I mean, we were talking before the show about the history of it and how I think in the teens or 20s, 1900s, when it first became illegal, that there was definitely some like racial racism associated with it, but there was also like corporations supposedly that really didn't like it because, like you brought up hemp, and it's astonishing to me that hemp was ever illegal. Hemp is not the same thing as doesn't necessarily have THC in it. And it's like it's like a wonder plant. You can like make anything, and the seeds have like this beautiful oil, and like you said, food and nutrients too. And I guess some big companies didn't like that, the sort of the resiliency and the fecundity of these plants and how they can just do so many things, because it would take away from their capital gains.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they didn't want it to be legal, and they wanted to focus on the smoking portions of it, which were a very small demographic of people during that time that actually consumed it in that fashion. There are more people eating it and using the seeds and turning the seeds into flour and other things more than anything else. So the racial connotations that they applied to it, and then renaming cannabis marijuana, there's lots of lore about how that name came about, but really it was the government who created that name. And that name was to bring a derogatory sense to that substance, to that plant, and to focus on the smoking and illicit portions of it rather than the nutrition and like the good things about it. They didn't want any focus on that. And that's why they've been primarily focused on smoking and all of those illicit uses as the main factor to keep it illegal, because they were able to gain public support by doing that. They were able to say, hey, we're getting these bad people doing these bad things, and they were able to kind of magnify it in that fashion and then get away from the actual science and facts that were actually needed during that time, because they started to realize that the plant was more beneficial than anything else. And so they had to apply those connotations to get the public support to keep it illegal. And it was racial too. It was racially motivated during that.
Yeah. So a lot about the science and medicinal aspects of it. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, through research, and there's multiple patents now that have been passed by the U.S. Patent Office. The U.S. Patent Office is one of the only offices that have recognized the actual applications of cannabis in humans. So through science, they were able to prove, for one instance, there was a U.S. patent 6630507, and that coined cannabinoids as neuroprotectants. And basically they showed patients who were Alzheimer patients, Parkinson's patients, and AIDS and HIV related dementias, they were giving them those patients CBD oil or cannabinoid oils in their diet. So they weren't smoking it or anything like that. Like, this was strictly nutritionally motivated to see how they would react to it. And the patients actually had very positive reactions to that supplemented in their body. And what it ended up showing was it helped remove some of the plaques associated with some of these conditions. So it was able to break through that blood-brain barrier and remove some of these plaques that were building up inside the brains of these individuals. And they had more days of clarity and lucidity, and they had, they were just better overall. They had better health. And what that ended up doing was kind of show us that there was a system inside the body that was able to accept these phytocannabinoids. They're called phyto for plant.
Mm-hmm.
So when you consume cannabis plant and the oils, those oils are phytocannabinoid acids in there in the raw form. And what they found out was our bodies have what's known as an endocannabinoid system, or a cannabinoid system that works inside of our own lipid signaling system. So all these fatty acids are actually signaling to each other how your body processes things. So what they're finding is cannabinoid deficiencies in portions of the body are actually what's causing certain diseases. So when you replace supplementally these endocannabinoids and these human endocannabinoids with plant phytocannabinoids, it fits in those, because there's hundreds of different cannabinoids in that plant material. Those little puzzle pieces fit inside of those areas that's malfunctioning, and it causes your lipid signaling system to start to revert itself back to homeostasis. So your body starts to see health benefits by simply adding it to your diet over a period of time. So those patients in that particular Alzheimer's study, they got better over time with adding this supplement to their diet. And that basically, like, there's been so much science done now to show that the endocannabinoid system is a real true system. It controls everything in our bodies. It controls even our central nervous system. It's this lipid signaling system that actually controls all that. So that's why we're seeing all these people get these health benefits when they add cannabinoids to their diets. And there's been other patents that were passed to specifically for diabetes, that cannabinoids added to the diet was reducing the need for some of these diabetic medications and insulin and some of these other things. And you know, when big companies and big pharma starts hearing this is their bottom line. This is the bottom line falling out because of the health potential of what this could actually do would far outweigh any kind of medication that they could ever prescribe for this, because what we're finding out is an actual deficiency happening inside the body.
Yeah, well, that's you know a lot about this stuff. That's pretty impressive. So yeah, and I'm sure, like, you know, again, big corporations, big businesses are going to get in the way of, you know, fact and in reality, just to make more money. That is the pharma. I should have an entire show on the pharmaceutical industry. Like, wow. But anyway, yeah, no, like a friend of mine has Crohn's disease, and when I first posted that on Facebook last week to get somebody on the show, she says she's been advocating for legalizing it for almost her entire life. I mean, after high school, probably, because of her health issues. And she's like, you know, they just have me so doped up on so many prescription drugs, and I smoke pot, and I feel 1,000 times better, you know. And it's not, you were talking about Alzheimer's or dementia. I mean, it's cancer patients or people on what's the
Chemotherapy.
Okay, on that, because they lose their appetite and it's really destructive to the body, and so this helps them feel better and it gets their appetite back, so because, you know, the munchies. So, you know, so many of these things were overlooked for so long, and, like, you know, we're talking about, like, the stigma that was associated with it, and then even after, like, when it first became illegal, and I think it's the 20s. Like, I mean, growing up in the 80s and stuff like that, you know, you had the stoners in high school, the burnouts and stuff like that. And it was just you know, I don't want to get too PC and say we were a marginalized group or something like that and play the victim. But I mean, we were definitely looked down upon by the rest of society. What's that?
It was by design. And it was some of those earlier, and it was 1937 when the marijuana tax
37, I was way off,
took place. That's when they started to require that stamp to trade in cannabis altogether. And they started arresting farmers and some of these other folks who,
nuts,
and really throwing the book at them.
End of the free.
Yeah, they stayed in jail for a long time, and of course that scared a lot of other people. Of course, they've been like, no, I'm not going to grow that stuff because they're going to come after me and throw me in jail, and I'm going to lose my farm and my family and all this stuff. And they really made an example out of those first individuals too, and that was really after, prohibition had ended, alcohol prohibition had ended in the United States, and there were a lot of federal agents who didn't have a whole lot to do at that time after prohibition.
What else can we make illegal just to give us something to do, just to stay on the clock?
So they found jobs for these folks in the narcotics realm. So they kind of twisted the whole thing into strictly focusing on throwing it all in one pile, basically saying all those drugs are the same thing, and going after them in those fashion, even before we knew anything medically about those things. Like, they didn't do any studies on that stuff before they, outlawed it or did those type of things to it too. So there was a lot of neglect that went on during that time, and they just did not care. They were just wanting to really, I think, just arrest people and to fulfill those roles that the prohibs were working at, that they had lost their jobs recently, within that decade after that. So they had a lot of people to choose from, probably, who were busy doing that type of work previously, and then just kind of rolled them over into those positions too. But that was 1937 when the Marijuana Tax Act took place. And from that point really on, it's just been a roller coaster with cannabis. And there's so many different, like you said, there's so many different industries and other things too, that, they didn't want anything to come out with the oils and the plastics industries and things like that too, because there's a process that happens with cannabis that it can be plasticized. It's called polylactic acids, and when they process some of the stuff for cord and these other things, polylactic acid is created. It's called PLA, and when they blend that with a hemp fiber blend, it's stronger than the plastics that are available out there on the market right now, the petroleum plastics. So that was another threat. The plastics industry, of course, the rope and cord, everything went plastic. They would nylon ropes, polyester ropes, those type of things. But nothing beats a hemp rope, and nothing, and all the moorings for the ships and things like that were all made of hemp because it was the strongest material. And nowadays it's not the case. There's more plastic out there than anything else in these factories, and there's a lot of rope making going on, but it's not natural fiber. It's all petroleum based fibers out there. So you have those industries, you have food, you have medicine, you have just about every single industry cannabis would touch. It's amazing to me, especially after doing this research too, how much, suppression has taken place over the years to really try to and to fool everyone about what cannabis isn't. And the propaganda early on from, after just before the Marijuana Tax Act took place, Reefer Madness and some of
they people think that kind of pushed it over like at the edge to illegality. Is that because of what the effect it had? Because I've seen clips of it. I never watched the whole thing because it's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But the little clips I've seen is like, I'm like, come on, dude. I mean, I was just smoking pot since I got out of high school. No, I don't remember that ever happening.
Yeah.
So like acting like, ooh, like all like that extreme. You might feel that way inside, but what's that?
And that was all commissioned by the government.
I'm sure.
The government created that those stereotypes and that narrative. They created that narrative really from a small little sector of people who were doing those type of things in that way. There wasn't, the majority of people were using cannabis for medicinal and food resources. And the flower, the shell of the cannabis seed can be ground up into flour, and it can be added.
Yeah.
And there's just so much that we don't do with cannabis that we could be doing.
Oh, it's a miracle plant. I mean, it really is.
Mm-hmm. It's being very overregulated, especially even with the federal programs that they have, because there's no insurance, there's no subsidies, right. There's no type of things like that on the market that some of the corn and soybean and some of these other folks get those subsidies and insurances in case, but if your crop is over that percentage of THC, you have to eliminate that crop. You don't get insurance, you don't get these type of things with that as well. So there's been a slow roll on the advocacy to be able to include those farmers into those positions too, because of that strict standard of THC content. And that's really the only thing that divides hemp from marijuana is the THC content. It's the exact same plant, but the cannabinoids that it produces are just a little bit different. So even if a plant produces mainly CBD, it's still going to have an oil content or a nutritional content of that oil for that particular cannabinoid. But it's just selective growing, selective breeding, and those type of things that have taken place, and allowed the government to start to regulate, really control the hemp altogether through the federal program.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then, like, what's also interesting too, speaking of the federal level, is that it's a Schedule 1 drug still by the the FDA, I think it is, and Schedule 1 means like it's amongst like heroin and fentanyl and stuff like that, and everybody's just like, "Are you out of your mind? That's ridiculous." First of all, like, alcohol is 1,000 times more dangerous and problematic than pot ever could be. I mean, and nobody seems to be, attending to that issue. But and I mean, I drank beer and stuff like that. I don't want that taken away. I'm just saying that, like, it's just the disparity is so grandiose, and the attention to each one is disproportionate to the other. And so, but interestingly enough, is Trump wants to make it Schedule 3. Trump. Like, and I don't remember on his campaign trail ever talking about it as a campaign issue or anything like that. Maybe he did. If he did, I missed it. I'm not a Trump guy. But I was like, as he's annoying, his MAGA base with the Epstein files and, bombing of Iran and stuff like that, and supporting Israel. And this is now bothering them too, because the typically, in the grand scheme of things, the right tends to be anti, make all drugs illegal, and I want to control your body and everything else. And he said, yeah, no, I think it's time to make it Schedule 3. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, and really that keeps it under the pharmaceutical and government control as well. It still doesn't give freedom to the user. It still carries penalizations for possession and those type of things. And for something that's never killed anyone, that's kind of strange to me. Yeah. It's something that's never hurt anyone, that's kind of strange to me as well. And it's been, like you said, on Schedule 1 for a long time, and there's been no reason for that.
It's ridiculous. Like, I would like to see the FDA's. There's got to be some sort of article, essay, or paper that they have in which how they decided they came to that conclusion that that's where it should be. I want to see the reasoning there, because everybody's just like, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, and that keeps it under the government control, so they can still continue to regulate. And at the local level too, you'll still have those Schedule 3 references, from above, that possession of cannabis is still going to be illegal to certain individuals who may need to consume cannabis. So it really lends to the pharmaceutical companies still, and it lends to the government to keep control and regulate and over-regulating cannabis altogether. They should be descheduling cannabis. Cannabis it's never hurt anyone. It's never killed anyone in any concentration whatsoever by itself. So you could literally eat cannabis concentrates, and it's not going to kill you. You're going to have an uncomfortable time. You're going to have a bad day or two until that stuff works out of your system, but you're not going to die. A child, it gets a hold of edibles. Yeah, they might have a bad experience, but it's still not Tylenol. It's still not aspirin, and they're still not going to die. And that's the argument that I don't understand, because I have a small child myself, and her getting anything like aspirin or Tylenol or any kind of prescription medications, and even under the counter type stuff that, cleaners and those type of things scare me more than anything. And we accept that as okay to be in our environment, and these deadly substances are okay, but the connotations in the mental build that has happened with the propaganda on individuals think that cannabis is in this different realm, in this different level of mythology almost. It's like they've created this mythological creature beast thing that doesn't really even exist, and people see that as what they're trained to see, and Just Say No and Dare and the Reefer Madness and all of this stuff was built with a purpose to have that immediate mental change when someone talks about cannabis, when someone brings up cannabis, when you see the cannabis leaf, even the smoking and the illicit and the drug use is almost imprinted in people's minds, and they can't get around that fact. It seems like, especially me working this food realm and trying to convince people like, hey, this stuff is good by itself raw. It's actually edible, and we're telling people to consume it the wrong way, and we're talking about people consuming it the wrong way. But that is the narrative that I'm finding that has been built and been created inside the minds of everyone who has been exposed to any type of government related anything with cannabis.
Right. No, that's absolutely correct. I did a report in college on cannabis. Like, this is it was at a community college, so it was first or second year. And I did a ton of research, from what I remember, it was legitimate research sources. And I came to the same conclusion that, like, it's never killed anybody, like 0 people. Like, I mean, I remember being like a little, like, not even one person really ever. Like, okay, and just to show how propagandized people are and how deeply entrenched that can be in their being. I remember, like, at a family gathering, and I come from a very Italian family, so you can put that in your head. And I brought it up, and it turned into like a screaming match. They would not believe me. And absolutely not. I'm like, it's science, it's facts, this is data. Nope. Sorry, not happening. Ann Coulter, we all know and love Ann Coulter, don't we? I'm being sarcastic. She's an idiot. But she's not an idiot. She's actually very intelligent. But she's just wrong a lot. I just saw an episode, a show, some video podcast in England, Trigonometry. Conservative podcast, very cool. I liked it. I try to be fair. I'm like, let me give her a shot. Let me just listen to it. It was like an hour and a half long interview, and she's very well spoken. Again, very intelligent. She's just has this an extreme bias on things. Like, she just can't use her critical thinking skills to get past these, definitely some racist stuff and otherwise. But pot came up, and she's like, "Oh my God, it's so bad for you." I'm like, "No, it's not." I'm like, "See, this is, again, you heard it when you were a kid, you believed it, and it just kind of got stuck in your moral craw somewhere, and you're wrong. It's not, right? I mean, am I over exaggerating this at all?"
No, and that's exactly right. And a lot of folks think that they came to those conclusions on their own too. They think that, that they really know what cannabis is or what cannabis isn't. And the sad fact is, you were trained about what you know. Unless you've researched on your own, unless you've done all this other stuff on your own, you have a very small sector of knowledge in the area, and that is really what you've been shown. And that is a preconceived almost in a lot of individuals, and they don't want to be told that they're wrong. They don't want to be told that someone tricked you into believing those things. And nothing upsets people more than that, I think, right now, is to realize that they've been lied to, and a lot of that going on from the government. You know what I mean? But it's not typical, but it's something that I think that we can get around, especially with this data, with this specific information, to show the public, look, there's vitamins, there's minerals, there's nutrients, there's fats in this material. And this is the stuff that the USDA doesn't want to do. And I went the route to check with the USDA. I went the route to check with the FDA. I went the route to allow the state programs to participate in this study as well, and inform them all about this process and the studies that could have been taking place and the studies that need to take place. And I tried to get them on board with me in this process too, and get Food Data Central from USDA, and get the USDA Domestic Hemp Program, get the FDA labeling folks and the FDA folks. And I had to do a lot of research too to find out, if they were even doing these things, and they've never done it. The FDA has never looked at the nutritional content of the raw plant material. The USDA has only looked at the hulled seeds, which are the hearts of the seeds, the meaty portions of it.
Yeah.
They've not looked at the flowers. They've not looked at the leaves or any of the full seed, which includes the fiber and the flowerable material that the seed shell contains. So none of the federal agencies have done this basic nutrition test of this crop. Like, this is a crop that we grow. We're calling it, you eat the seeds, but yet we don't know anything about the nutritional content of the actual plant material at all. And I'm finding that's by design. They don't want people to know about what the raw plant material contains, because it is very nutritious, because it's very tolerable by the body. You can eat it. You can, you can blend it in with soups and other foods too. And because of our endocannabinoid system, we're starting to see that this is maybe a part of our nutritional supplement that has been missing. And a lot of people have been talking about what's known as secondary cannabinoid intake, which is through animals. So the deer and the cattle in the Department of Interior of the United States have not been exposed to a land race of hemp either in all of these times that we've eradicated it at the federal level. So the Department of Interior also eradicated hemp that was naturally land race hemp that herding cattle moving through those Department of Interior spaces would have consumed. The same thing with moose, deer, elk, bison, any of these animals that we would have consumed their meat secondarily. They were not consuming the initial cannabinoids too that they should have been receiving in those lands had we not interrupted the land race of cannabis altogether. So that's a whole other take on the science of what people are, because we've interrupted and we've disrupted our own ecosystem and eliminating cannabis from our continent as well.
Right. Yeah. And you said you were in Afghanistan, or you were just in the Army during that time?
I was in Afghanistan from 2009 to 10. I served with the 38th Infantry Division. They're based out of Indianapolis. But they're one of only a few National Guard infantry divisions that exist. But yeah, I deployed with the 38th Infantry Division to Afghanistan.
I've heard tales. I've never looked into it to check to confirm nor deny of like poppy fields being burned down. Was that true?
No, I mean, we weren't disrupting the poppy growth really a whole lot at all. That was, and a lot of that was making its way back into the pharmaceuticals here in the United States too. Even though they said that they weren't buying Afghanistan opium, it was still making its way into Iran and other places, and then it would be repackaged and sold to the United States. And that was during the peak of OxyContin and some other drugs that were very addictive that we were prescribing to veterans coming right back from Afghanistan. So the overprescription of those type of medications and things like that really led to a lot of veterans pushing for cannabis access too, because of how deadly those substances actually are, and being prescribed in combination with benzodiazepines and taken in combination with alcohol and other substances too, was leading to a lot of veteran deaths, especially when folks were coming home from overseas and suffering from PTSD and other conditions as well. So really, I mean, cannabis is they were growing cannabis there too. If you ever heard of Kush, Kush kind of cannabis.
Heard of it. I've had some.
Yeah.
It's legal in Illinois, which is awesome.
Yeah. That originally came from the Hindu Kush area of Afghanistan and those mountainous areas. So that's where those original strains from that strain of cannabis came from, was Afghanistan.
Well, I want to thank the Afghanistanian culture for for their contribution to my pleasure and enjoyment in life. I remember like when I think it was Colorado that first legalized it recreationally. I think no, it was Colorado. And this was a while ago, but I remember like hearing that and being like, wait, you can do that? You can just make something that's been illegal forever legal? That's a thing. Now it turns out in a democracy, that's exactly what you can do. And then of course it spread like wildfire. And I think most states have it medicinally. I mean over 25 of the 50 have it medicinally legal. 17 maybe, do you know? Oh, have it recreationally legal? It's not a lot.
I'm not exactly sure now, and it's so hard to keep up with too because there's been such an expansion happening over the last decade of states getting on board and really ignoring federal and taking those rights back as states themselves and making that decision within their own states. So there was a lot of threat from federal saying that they're going to, reduce funding and a lot of these other things if these states didn't comply, but we didn't see, at least I haven't seen any of that happen from those states who actually participated and partook in those programs, regardless of what the federal government said. So they exercised their states' rights, especially on that one.
It makes me have, I sometimes get angry with the founding fathers, just like, because of the 3/5 clause and stuff like that. But like states' rights is such a, especially when you see with like the sanctuary cities or states and the trans acceptance and abortion and everything else. And states can actually, secure themselves within any one or more of those things, as the other ones are like, going against them. It makes me happy that we have like the states' rights thing going on, that like Newsom is telling, Texas and Trump, go try your gerrymandering, just try it, see what happens. Like it's petty that, especially the gerrymandering thing, it's such a petty, stupid issue. But it's just kind of cool to see like the big dogs go at it like that to fight for us. I like that. So, what's kind of the temperament or the like kind of the perspective or perception in Indiana on this? Because you said neither side is legal. That's I didn't know that.
Well, we have a hemp program here in the state of Indiana. So we have hemp access, which is cannabinoids derived from hemp under the hemp program. So we have at least those cannabinoids to access, and that's state sales and 7% tax right now. We don't have access to high THC products that are not hemp derived. There are some high THC products that are hemp derived still, but of course here in the state of Indiana you're going to pay more for that because hemp naturally makes less THC. So the conversions and making that into a consumable too, that's added into those costs as well. But a lot of people just simply travel over the state lines. Illinois,
Michigan,
Michigan, and Ohio and Kentucky both have medical programs right now. And they have hemp programs too that have other accesses for other cannabinoids. But we're on an island. We're surrounded by folks who have access to the high THC cannabis in those programs that we don't have yet.
So does CBD come from hemp specifically, or is it a part of the cannabis crop?
Well,
I know it doesn't have THC in it. Doesn't have to, at least.
Well, they can isolate the cannabinoids now, so they
is that what it is? Okay.
They can isolate CBD away from the other stuff. They can, because it has different molecular weight to it, that they can kind of move it away from each other.
Fascinating. Science is so fascinating how they can do this stuff. That's very interesting. I mean, CBD is like a life changer for a lot of people. I mean, I interviewed a guy who owns a CBD shop when I had a radio show a few years ago, and he gave me just testimony after testimony after testimony of people like almost in tears because it helped them so greatly with joint pain and arthritis and whatever else. And just, it's unbelievable. My mom does it some. She's got arthritis. So she's on prescription something. So that she says that tends to work a little bit better, but sometimes she'll use CBD, and she says it's still very effective.
Oh yeah, and that's what I was talking about, the endocannabinoid system, and what we're talking about with the Food First initiative is raw. We're not talking about, because there's certain things that you have to do to some of these cannabinoids to make them activated. So not heating it up doesn't activate it. It doesn't, what's known as decarboxylate. You don't remove the carbon atom from the acid, which turns it in, instead of a THCA, it's now a THC molecule. But you have to heat it to a certain amount for that to release off of there. And then you have the active molecule of THC. So there's certain minute mechanics happening to the substances that people don't understand too, and eating it in its raw form provides a different type of supplemental and medicinal and food effect than it would had you heated it up or put it into a certain food item and decarboxylated and activated that. And CBD also has to be decarboxylated or activated in some instances where people see effect of it. So instead of having the CBD which that A is the acid form of it, once that's converted into a regular CBD form, that's considered the activated molecule of CBD, not the raw form as the CBDA. So you have THCAs, you have all of these acid forms of these fatty molecules that have not been converted yet. They have a different an effect on your body when they're not activated too. There are benefits that people see, physiological benefits. It might not have the effect that THC has, but it has a physiological effect that's beneficial to individuals, and they see that over time, and they feel that, and they sense that over time as they get better, adding it to their diet. So the CBD, it's still a cannabis plant, but it's the government's version of what hemp is supposed to be. Gotcha. And then the THCs, because some of these plants produce high THC and CBD in some of these states where they're not necessarily worried about where it's legal. So in Michigan, you can have plants that are high THC and high CBD. So you end up with a concentrate form of it that's actually high in both. And that's very medically beneficial to a lot of people with certain conditions. And there are there's so much information in my brain right now. Like I
can tell.
And it's just from doing all of this reading and research and working with these individuals and in this sector too. I've learned so much about our own bodies and how this works in our bodies. And the CB, our bodies, like I talked about before, the endocannabinoid system, we have CB1 and CB2 receptors in our body. And those are where these molecules come into contact and are absorbed by our bodily functions. So those receptors are where these molecules will end up receiving the THC or the CBD or whatever other cannabinoid that you put into your body to help that homeostasis.
Right. Yeah. And homeostasis is a good word for that at least the feeling. Just chill.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, because the THC is the psychoactive part of the plant or the flower. That's what gets you stoned, if you will. And that has different effects. I remember I had Deputy Chief of the Lake County Sheriff's Department, Chris Cavelli, on last year, I believe. And amongst other things, I asked him about, since pot's been legal, like, what are you guys kind of coming across as police officers? He's like, well, there's been some, like, people get in car accidents and they have THC in their blood, that kind of thing. But usually it's combined with alcohol as well. And that's another thing that kind of frustrates me is, like, when it comes to that, it's very difficult to isolate the cause to see what actually made you get into a car accident, that kind of thing. So you're blaming something that might not have anything to do with it whatsoever. It might have, but they just sort of generalize, and it doesn't. Right. Exactly. I mean,
a normal consumer knows that too. And a person who's normally consuming cannabis know that you're not physiologically affected the same way as someone who doesn't use cannabis every single day. So the physiological effects are completely different from someone who's a daily consumer and someone who consumes on the weekend. It's completely different. And the intensity of those effects are completely different between those two individuals as well. And that's what law enforcement doesn't take into account. They don't care about that. Right now, they're just trying to look for the presence of THC, and just the presence of THC, they're starting to try to convict people of DUIs and DWIs and some of these instances. Like here in the state of Indiana, you're paying a tax for a product that's hemp, but it contains THC. So you're paying a tax to avoid penalization or legal issues with that product. So it's state regulated. You're paying a tax for it, but yet if you take a urine screen for the state, you're in trouble. You can't avoid those urine screens when you're in the probationary or parole programs and things like that. And there's certain aspects of it where they really do just simply want to use this as a penalization process and to get people rolled up into the legal process, criminal processes as well, ultimately. And they're still making a lot of money on it too. In these counties where someone is picked up for cannabis possession in the state of Indiana, each of those individuals who enter that county jail make up about $55 a day for that facility. So if someone is arrested for possession, they get thrown into jail for a couple days. The jail makes $110 off of that individual for those 2 days in jail. Now send them to their pre-trial where they probably gained another couple days in jail or something. Maybe they missed a meeting or something and they were penalized for it. Well, that's another couple days in jail that you spend. And then if you're convicted of the possession itself, you still have to be sentenced. So that sentencing, they're going to probably prescribe some jail time or probationary period, and or give you a plea deal that says, well, you don't get to go to jail, you get to go home if you agree to the probationary program, but you still have to pay out of pocket for the probationary program. Mm-hmm. So the jail is making $55 a day for that person's head that they're supposed to be in jail, plus the money that the individual is paying for that probationary or parolee program or house arrest program. So they're making a lot of money still right now on the possession of cannabis, and it's really a foot in your door. And the smell of cannabis is still, they're still using it as grounds to search your person or your property. So if they bring a dog around your car at a stop, you can pretty much expect you're going to be out of there and they're going to be looking through your car, whether you have it or not. They're still searching for searching for those things, and they're using it to basically avoid your constitutional rights by saying, no, the dog says there's a smell here, we got to check it out now. Even if they don't yield anything, they're still going to search your vehicle and use it as an excuse if they suspect they could find anything or could get you on something else.
Yeah, so, no, I watch a lot of videos about cops, a lot. And I'm not generally morally opposed to like communities having a task force. I think there's a lot of revisions that need to be made. But I remember this one video. This cop was like just making up stuff, right? And pulled the guy over for whatever reason. And he's like, and then somebody's like, I smell marijuana. And the guy starts laughing. He's like, no, you don't. Stop lying. He's like, there's never been marijuana in this car. And the cop's like, no, I smell it. He's like, no, you don't. And I don't remember if that cop got a dog or not, but I've seen cops do that. They bring out the German Shepherds. I wonder where they got that idea from, to, go around the car. And I remember reading before, I'm not going to give you an exact number because I don't remember what it is. But like there was a high enough error rate with the drug sniffing dogs that it's genuinely a problem. Mm-hmm. It's not very accurate. I mean, I think it was above 50% accurate, but like not much. So when you have like a 30 to 40% error rate, that's a lot, so sort of thing. And yeah, cops use it just to kind of keep you around, just to piss you off and make you not be able to get back to work or your family or your day just because they can, because they're jerks sometimes. Yeah, no, it's a problem on so many different levels. I mean, as libertarians, I don't think either of us or any of us, want that amount of like cop authority, police authority, or governmental authority over us in our bodies. I mean, there's a very basic principle to libertarianism is that you own your body and nobody else does. No government, no cop, no judge, no lawyer, no God if you're not religious, that kind of, it is yours and yours alone. And people don't seem, I say this to a lot of my Democrat friends who are pro-choice, who don't seem to understand that. I'm like, why are you pro-choice? Almost always somebody's going to say, because it's the woman's body. Okay, I'm like, well, that principle ranges over other issues as well. It's not just isolated to abortion. Anything that has to do with what I'm doing with the trans thing, homosexual thing, whatever it is, drug use, it's my damn body. I'll do what I want. As long as I'm not hurting anybody else, it's really none of your business. Now, if you're a heroin addict or something like that, I would hope your family and friends would step in and try to help you. But it's the illegality of it that really, I think, kind of chaps the libertarian ass, if you will. Okay, right? Do I have that right?
Well, yeah, and it also allows the companies and corporations to kind of feed off of that too. So you have an accident where someone has THC in their system, like you said, and then they tested positive for THC, and now they're facing, because maybe there was an injury or a death in that accident, and now they're being pegged with a DUI with homicidal intent of some sort because of THC in their body. Also, the insurance plans for those individuals aren't going to pay out either, because they're in cahoots in corporation with that aspect of it. Like, and you see that in workplace accidents, you see that in those type of things too, where people have THC in their system and they get in these accidents, and the insurance company's like, no, we ain't going to pay for you to get any kind of help at all because there was THC in your system. Even if you got it from the hemp program and are able to show the receipt and you paid the taxes to avoid penalization on it, it doesn't matter. They're still not going to help you. And because of these policies are backed up by these aspects of laws too, that really, it's not helping anyone except the big guys right now, especially the big corporations. If there's a large accident or something like that, and I've known people, that get in accidents at work, or they might be a weekend smoker or something, or they even just get a pop test at work because of that. And the drug testing, that is people don't see that as a Fourth Amendment infringement of your rights,
right,
to be giving up a portion of yourself for anyone or a workplace. But a lot of people will just go ahead and do that. But that they get penalized for that all the time, for having THC in their body for these particular reasons.
Yeah, no, that's all true. It reminds me of like how, cops have the right, and it's not a right, by the way. Cops don't have rights. Cops have privileges. Individual citizens have rights. Well, it's a whole nother episode. Have the right to like stick a needle in your damn arm to draw your blood to see if you have THC in it. I'm like, you do not have the right to stick a needle in my arm. That's ridiculous. Like, where do you get this from? That's insanity. Or like shove their hand up your rectum to check to see if you're, carrying drugs around. Like, what? That's nuts.
Well, the sad thing is, like, it's almost like the drug testing realm was built around cannabis because of its fatty content, and it stays in your body for so long.
Right.
It attaches to those fat molecules.
Right.
And you can take 30 to 60 to sometimes 90 days to free your body of all cannabinoid material that's detectable by some of these tests. So they're very sensitive to those, and it takes a very long time to get that stuff out of your system, even though you're not physiologically affected by any of that whatsoever. You're still testing as if someone was, and that's the discrepancy of the whole testing too, and how it's kind of built against us altogether.
Yeah, no, and it's like going back to like how the disproportionate like effects, dangers of like alcohol to marijuana. Alcohol is 1,000 times worse than marijuana ever could be. For example, one of of all substances that contribute to like violence, whether it be domestic violence or just violence in the street or a bar, liquor like beats the crap out of all the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's that old joke or whatever it is. 5 drunk guys, start a bar fight, 5 stone guys start a folk band, kind of thing. So yeah, and again, that's just like the insurance. I mean, when you go into interviews, they say you have to take a drug test. I remember I walked out of an interview a long time ago for that. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. It's like you have to. I'm like, all right, bye. Yeah, the insurance companies don't seem to care if you're a raging alcoholic.
No.
Are you going home and beating your children and your wife because you're so drunk all the time? They don't care about that. They don't ask you about it. They just want to know if you smoke pot. It's ridiculous. It's so offensive. It's not even like just dumb. It's offensive. It's cruel, I think.
It is. It's absolutely cruel, and we shouldn't be treating people who consume cannabinoids, whether it be hemp cannabinoids or marijuana high THC cannabinoids. We shouldn't be punishing anyone for consuming cannabis. And what we're finding is people are attracted to cannabis because it's fulfilling that endocannabinoid deficiency or some sort of role in their body that it's fulfilling. And at most occasions, it's self-medicating, it's self-supplementing in most cases of cannabis use too that we see.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Well, thank you so much. It's been about an hour. I try not to keep people over an hour. Thank you so much, William Henry, for coming on the show. You are just an encyclopedia of information here. This is great. You know a lot. You've mentioned words that I've never even heard of, and I read a lot myself. So that's very cool. Thank you so much, and I would love to keep in touch with you and maybe have you back on because you have so many other kind of facets of your life that are. Especially the libertarian thing, as far as me personally, I'd love to have it back on it. Do you know Mary Ruwart?
I know of Mary Ruwart and the institution that she's working on too, and trying to educate people about libertarianism.
Yeah,
I share her posts. I'm definitely a follower of her and her common sense approach to libertarianism for sure.
I've heard her on my shows probably more than anybody else. 7 or 8 times because she's got the PhD in biophysics, worked for the pharmaceutical company. Let's say I've had her on 7 times. 6 of those 7 times I've had her on to talk about that kind of stuff. She's written a book about it. Very fascinating. She's the real deal. She's a very credible source. So that's really good. It's not just some me saying what I think about the healthcare. She's got data and percentages and stats and stuff. The last time I had her on, which was about a month ago, we talked about libertarianism, just straightforward libertarianism. And she's a wealth of information concerning that. She's been a libertarian for a very long time. She actually told me that she converted. She became a libertarian in college in the late 60s, before the Libertarian Party even existed, which wasn't until 72, started by David Nolan. Is that him? David Nolan. So she's really been dedicated to it, and she's a wonderful human being. And maybe we can have you both on sometime and we can just kind of get 2 different perspectives on libertarianism.
That'd be great. Yeah. And I did work in 2020 for the pharmaceutical companies on the vaccines. So I had hands-on in the Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca processes that I saw firsthand that had happened during there too. And it was at a major laboratory that I was contracted to work at. And I was also, that was right after I ran for lieutenant governor. So they didn't know, even who I was but I ended up finding out a lot about the pharmaceutical and medical realm. And that's kind of where it led me to this stuff too, is to head down these tracks and to start sniffing out the way to lighten up some of these regulations and get cannabis legalized altogether and get it descheduled, not rescheduled, because they still want a hold of it. And right now in our processes, we're working directly with the farmer. They're getting ready to harvest some of this stuff, and it's going to go directly to the food laboratories here in the next month. We're going to start getting the answers here in the next 45 to 50 days about this study and seeing exactly what's in this plant material, being able to provide that information with the public in a report, a scientific report that everyone will be able to read, and that we'll have published on our website, which is www.foodfirst.us. You can go there and check out about the study and about the plan altogether regarding what we've done.
Well, that sounds great. Yeah, for sure. I'm going to try to read the rest of that a little later. Yeah, that's great. I will reach out to Mary and see if she's probably out for it. She's never said no to me to come on the show. So yeah, she's a fabulous lady, and you're a great guy. You know so much, dude. I wasn't expecting all that. That's great. So this Johnson Johnson thing, that's intriguing. I want to hear more dirt on that,
Yeah.
because the information is unraveling more and more about what actually happened back then in the
Yeah.
COVID days.
Yeah, there was a lot, and it really opened up my eyes to the processes and how much money is actually attached to this stuff,
Oh,
and how
I
much
can
money
imagine.
these laboratories and these places were making during that time. It was exponential. It was absolutely phenomenal amount of money that
I
was
could
passing
imagine.
from the government to these agents to those.
There was some CEO of some pharmacy was brought in front of Congress a few years ago and like kind of like spilled what he like made and the bonuses and all that. And again, I don't have an exact number, but it was just an audacious amount, for to sell people medicine. That's what I don't get. Like I'm like, okay. Anyway, so all right, William Henry, thank you so much for coming on the show. Let's definitely keep in touch and hang on after I end the show real quick. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, to Let's Talk Lake County. I'm your host, David Rich. Till next time, keep talking. All right, 1 second.